Hey everyone, I know it's 6 p.m. We're just going to give everyone a few more minutes to join. So we'll get started shortly.
Leslie,
Yes.
could Alessandra is stuck in the as a attendee, not a panelist. Can you upgrade her?
Um, I do not see her in attendees.
Okay, I think she's trying to log back on.
Oh, okay. For those of you who are not part of our El Camino Real Community Advisory Committee and are just attending as community members, we're going to get started shortly here. Just give us a few more minutes to let everybody join. Oh, I see her now, Simran. Oh,
Great.
I just promoted her.
Thanks, Leslie. Sorry about that.
No problem. Right now we only have 2 CAC members present, and I know we had a couple more. RSVP, yes. So 6:05, maybe we'll give it a couple more minutes, if that's okay. Okay. I have not heard from anyone else, and we're already 8 minutes past. So, Alessandra, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. Yeah, Leslie, do you want to start with introductions and then I can share my
Yeah.
screen and go through the presentation?
Yeah. So it's been a while. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a few years since we met. And Alessandra's going to go over some of this in her presentation, but we'll just do some quick introductions, and then Alessandra's going to go through some background and remind us all where we've been and where we are now. But I'm Leslie Xavier, and I'm the planning manager here for the city of Santa Clara, managing the El Camino Real specific plan project. And I'll turn it over to Patricia.
Hey, Patricia Long. I'm stepping in for Adam Thompson for Oakwood Residents Association. And on the side, I'm also the chair of Historical and Landmarks Commission and also the Station Area Plan. So,
You. And then Anthony.
Hey everyone, my name is Anthony Montes. I'm the Associate Director of Advocacy and Development at the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. I am supporting a team of advocates in the Santa Clara area.
Great, thank you. And then we have our two consultants here. If you want to go ahead and introduce each other.
Sure. So hi there, I'm Alessandra Lundeen. I've been working on the El Camino Real specific plan pretty much since the beginning of the project in 2017. So I'm kind of the project manager from Raymond Associates. And I have Simran with me, my colleague and principal.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simran Malhotra. I'm a principal with Raymond Associates, and I've been working with Alessandra, Leslie, and others at the city and a larger team that we have on this project for the last several years. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming out on a busy Monday evening. Appreciate your time today.
Great. And if there's anyone in the attendees, if you are on our CAC and I haven't promoted you, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll promote you as a panelist because some folks aren't named exactly correctly. Let's see, I have SVBC staff. You can go ahead and unmute and speak.
Hi, this is Katie Causey. I'm a fellow staff member of Anthony Montez. I oversee our work on El Camino Real for the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and promote you. Thank you. And anyone else that should be a member of our CAC, not just a attendee? Manuel, you can go ahead and unmute and speak.
Yeah, hi, Manuel Salazar with Silicon Valley at Home.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Sorry about that. Manuel Salazar with SV at Home. I'll be taking Matthew's place today.
Okay, great. I'll promote you to a panelist as well. Thank you. All right, am I missing anyone else? I see no more hands. All right, Alessandra, if you want to go ahead and get started with our presentation.
Sorry, I muted myself. It just, can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So welcome. Thank you for being here, as Simran said, for our first CAC meeting in a very long time. So quick agenda for this evening. We've already kind of done introductions. I'm going to walk through the project background, an overview of the specific plan, key revisions that we've made to the plan in the last year or so, some of the next steps for the plan, and then we'll have a little bit of a discussion and open the floor for public comment. So the purpose of this specific plan is to refine and implement the general plan vision for the El Camino Real, which was identified as a focus area for future growth in the city. And then additionally, the corridor was designated a priority development area by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, so MTC and ABAG, for higher density transit-oriented growth. And this is back in the 2010 for the general plan and 2015, 2017 for the PDA area. And the specific plan addresses required specific plan topics such as land use, transportation, and infrastructure. It creates goals, policies, zoning, and design standards. It identifies specific improvements and actions to achieve the vision and will, of course, include an environmental impact report to assess potential environmental impacts. So the 2010 general plan, again, designated the El Camino Real as a focus area for growth and laid out a vision for the area. So basically the vision for it is to transform it from a series of auto-oriented strip malls to a tree-lined, pedestrian, and transit-oriented corridor with a mix of residential and retail uses. And the specific plan aligns with the high-level policies outlined in the general plan. So I know it's been quite a long time since we last convened this group. So how did we get to this point? As a quick recap, in 2010, the general plan update rezoned the corridor to residential and mixed use. In 2017, the City Council directed staff to prepare a specific plan to provide more detailed policies for new development. And then in 2017 to 2021, staff worked with our team at RNA, as well as a technical advisory committee and this CAC to prepare a draft specific plan. So we went through many rounds of community engagement, workshops, did land use alternatives, presented those to the City Council, and went through this whole process. And then in the summer of 2021, we brought the specific plan to City Council, who reviewed the plan over the course of a couple of hearings and provided direction to modify the plan. So in March of 2023, we started this kind of phase 2 to revise the specific plan per council direction. So the City Council direction was to prepare a reduced specific plan to address community concerns over residential adjacency and the impacts of higher density development, but also retain enough development capacity and elements of the prior specific plan to support mixed use development along the corridor. And I'll talk a little bit more about this on the coming slides. So I'm now going to walk through an overview of the specific plan and the key revisions that were made. So here's the table of contents for the plan. There are 6 chapters. Most of the revisions were made within chapters 3, land use, and chapter 4, development and design standards. And I'm just going to provide kind of a brief walkthrough of what's in each chapter and some of the key changes. So as a reminder, chapter 1 provides an introduction to the plan, including the location and context, the purpose, and the community engagement process. And we made just a few minimal revisions to this chapter, adding this additional CAC meeting, for example, in the engagement process section. Chapter 2 provides the vision, desired outcomes for the corridor, and planning frameworks, such as focusing development at key activity nodes, respecting the character of adjacent developments, and improving multimodal access along the corridor. Chapter 3 contains the land use policies, land use map, development growth potential, and the open space plan. So some of the key changes in chapter 3 include adding a new lower density land use designation for townhomes, reducing the density along sensitive interfaces adjacent to single family homes, particularly on the northern side of El Camino Real. And again, this was to address council concerns and direction. We revised the land use plan to be consistent with existing and recently entitled projects. So there were a couple of housing projects that came in since 2021, and we wanted to make sure the plan reflected those recently constructed projects and was in alignment with them. And then we reduced the development potential per City Council direction to 4,400 residential units. So in the original plan, the capacity was about 6,200 units, and now it's 4,400. So this slide shows the now 4 land use designations in the specific plan. The most intense is the regional commercial mixed use designation, which applies to those kind of large activity center parcels, such as the Moonlight Center. Then there's the corridor mixed use designation, which is moderate density and requires commercial frontage at a few key nodes. And then what we did is we split the previous corridor residential designation into 2 new zoning districts. So we have corridor residential, and corridor residential low is the new one, and that's specifically for townhomes. So to give a few more details on that new designation, corridor residential low allows for townhome development at 12 to 25 dwelling units per acre and about 2 to 3 stories in height. And it applies to small, shallow parcels, particularly when adjacent to single family parcels. Commercial is allowed in this designation, but it's not required. And then as you can see here, this is the full revised land use plan showing all the changes and those 4 designations. And then this map on the following slide highlights the parcels where we made a land use change from the original specific plan. So in total, we changed about 60 parcels to the new corridor residential low designation. If you look on this map, you'll see the very light blue lines show parcels that are directly adjacent to single family homes. And as you can see, we redesignated a number of these small parcels along the northern side of El Camino Real where more sensitive neighborhood transitions are needed. And then additionally, the hatching represents recent and approved or pending projects that have occurred since 2021. So we also redesignated about 7 properties along the corridor to corridor residential and corridor mixed use respectively to reflect what's been recently constructed. So chapter 4 contains the land use table of permitted uses by zone, the development standards such as heights, density, setbacks, and open space, and objective design standards, which are required by state law. And some of the key revisions that we made in chapter 4 include adding development and design standards for that new corridor residential low land use designation. We revised the neighborhood transition standards for the north side of El Camino Real to require a 30-degree daylight plane, and I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slides. We made some minor revisions to development and objective design standards to align with the recently adopted zoning code and best practices. So when we originally drafted the specific plan, the city was in the process of updating the comprehensive zoning code. And since then, that zoning code has been adopted. And so we wanted to make sure it was in the plan was in alignment with the zoning code changes or update. And then we replaced one of the original site plans for the corridor mixed use designation with a new site plan for a parcel or a site at the intersection of El Camino Real and Morse Lane. So again, a key concern from the community throughout the development of the specific plan was sensitivity to adjacent low density neighborhoods. And the plan includes a number of transition standards to ensure that new development does not cause privacy, shading, and other impacts on adjacent properties. So the plan previously included a 45-degree daylight plane transition in setbacks and heights abutting single family parcels. And we conducted several shadow studies for a couple of parcels along the northern side of El Camino Real. And based on those studies, we revised the standard to require a 30-degree setback plane specifically for parcels on the northern side of the corridor to limit shading on adjacent single-family homes. And then in addition to that, we also have transition standards for deeper setbacks, upper story setbacks, smaller scale and house form building types such as townhomes, orienting windows and balconies away from existing homes, and providing landscape buffers. So here you'll find the results of the site tests and shadow studies that were conducted for several parcels on the northern side of the corridor at the intersection of El Camino Real and Morse Lane. So there are currently 2 kind of low scale hotels on the site, and they're really built up right almost to the property line of some single family homes to the rear. So we modeled a building, a mixed use building that could be built using the standards in the plan. And on this slide, you'll see basically the shadow study that we conducted. So the shadows that fall on the adjacent single family homes throughout the year for both the existing hotels versus a new mixed use building under the specific plan regulations. So as you can see, and I'm sorry, it was a little bit small, but the new building does not shade the single family homes with the exception of the winter solstice when the shadows are the longest during the year. And you can see there is some shading on the yards of those homes to the rear of the site, but they're actually mostly cast by the 6-foot fence along the property line. And they're about the same as the shadows that are currently being cast by the existing buildings on the site today. And again, this was modeled with the 30-degree daylight plane. And so those were the changes that we made to the transition standards. Moving on to chapter 5. Chapter 5 contains the mobility framework for the corridor, the proposed bike and pedestrian networks, sidewalk and public realm standards, parking standards, and the right-of-way redesign concept for El Camino Real. So in this chapter, we made some very minimal revisions, mostly in accordance with the recently adopted zoning code. And then just as a kind of a reminder, because I know people haven't seen this in a while, a key element of the specific plan is kind of the future alignment of El Camino Real. So this diagram depicts the existing condition with the 3 travel lanes, turn lanes, and narrow sidewalks. And the plan establishes both an interim and a final configuration for El Camino Real that gives greater support for pedestrians and bicyclists, transit users, etc. So on-street parking will be removed to accommodate a protected bikeway, bus boarding islands, wider sidewalks, and street trees as parcels redevelop in the future. And then chapter 6 is implementation. So it includes project administration, a community benefits program section, implementation actions, recommended capital improvements, and a funding and financing strategy. And again, we made very minimal changes in this chapter. So what's happening next in the process? We'll be conducting engagement on the public draft specific plan starting in January. And then the public draft EIR will be released in the spring, and the plan will go for adoption in summer of 2025. And I will stop sharing at this point and open it up for questions and discussion.
Thank you, Alessandra. And now we just want to open up to all the CAC members for any comments, questions. Patricia.
Yeah, quick question. Thank you for your presentation. That was like really informative, actually, because there was a lot of pages to go through for any questions coming in through this. So like my one question is like, what is your criteria for making changes on some of the parcels to the low density?
Yes. So what we did is we actually went through and we looked at every single parcel along the corridor as part of our kind of land use analysis. Before we made recommended changes, and we looked at, what's existing today. Are those, parcels likely to redevelop or not? How large are the parcels? Again, we specifically looked at adjacency and sensitivities for parcels on both sides of the corridor, but specifically the northern side of the corridor, where the shadows from taller buildings really do impact could impact single family homes. So we looked at those kind of adjacency conditions. There are a couple of adjacency conditions along the corridor. So there's parcels where they directly abut single family homes and they're really close to the property line. Those are the most sensitive. Then there are parcels that are less sensitive, where they're across the street from a single family home, or parcels that are adjacent or across the street from a multifamily home that's already or multifamily development that's already several stories. So we kind of used a lot of those factors to figure out which parcels would make sense to be kind of downzoned to that townhomes designation.
Cool, thank you.
Anthony.
Hey there, thank you for your work on this. Follow-up question, just to get a little clarity, is I think I saw is a 5-story limit. Is that for every structure, or is that just for the townhomes?
So every designation has a different height limit. So the highest density designation is the regional commercial mixed use, and that's actually 5 to 6 stories.
Okay.
The kind of medium one, the corridor mixed use, that's 4 to 5 stories. Then there's the corridor residential, which is 3 to 4 stories in height. Those are kind of low scale, just multifamily residential. And then the townhomes are 2 to 3 stories.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for that clarity. And then want to just give you kudos for the comprehensive strategy here. Whether it's, doing mobility on the actual roadway, or even, doing the stormwater solutions and greening, that whole pieces of it. And then the urban, the landscaping. So the meeting has some good stormwater drainage too. Like that is like, that kind of detail is amazing to see in this plan. But that also comes with its own challenges. That means that you will have to make some trade-offs to accommodate all these different objectives. So, how will you prioritize these trade-offs in terms of implementation?
In terms of implementation, yeah, maybe, I'm not sure if Leslie, you wanted to tackle that question.
I mean, well, we have standards in the plan that have to be met, right? And then we have guidelines. So the standards are required. And then the guidelines are, based on, I don't know where we'd have conflicting priorities, but, in general, if you're designing a site, you should be able to accommodate all of the items. I mean, sometimes as you go through site design, you run into, fire needs fire access here, and so it can't go there, right? So those things always have to be prioritized depending on life safety issues. But the goal is to accommodate all of the aspects of the plan in the site design. Yeah,
and just to add to that, I believe the city is already undertaking some of the changes that were recommended to El Camino Real right now. So correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, but I think you've already started maybe like removing on-street parking in places and starting to implement the right-of-way reconfiguration. So it's it is going to be a little bit of a phased approach. And that's why we also had that interim right-of-way concept before more permanent and expensive changes like bus boarding islands would be provided. So there's kind of an in-between step. So it is a long-term, plan that's going to take, 10, 20 plus years to implement. And then same thing with kind of the sidewalk improvements. We've laid out areas where landscaping and street trees can and should be provided. Other areas where there's utility conflicts and, there's kind of an in-between option, and other areas where it would have to be kind of like above grade planters and such. And then a lot of that would be implemented on a kind of parcel by parcel basis as properties redeveloped. And you kind of see that happening along the corridor already as properties are turning over. So for example, Villas on the Boulevard, that was developed, oh gosh, I don't know how long ago that was, Leslie. Is that like 8 years ago or something like that? But you can see there, like as that property redeveloped, they made all of the required kind of sidewalk improvements that were requested by the city. So the sidewalks there are much wider than they are elsewhere on the corridor. They put in street trees and landscaping. So again, like as those properties redevelop, those improvements will be made.
Right, that's great. So I like that we're already at the removing parking. Like it's something that seems like not a commitment per se, but something that's definitely like planned in this plan. Like it actually seems like something that you're committed to in some way. But without reducing the lane widths, I think the original it was 11 and it's still 11, right? I don't think you're changing the lane widths, or
I think actually some of the lane widths were reduced.
They were already reduced.
Yeah, they were already reduced. They were actually reduced like in the middle of us drafting the specific plan, interestingly. And that was taken into account by the transportation consultant when we did the right-of-way configuration.
Oh, great. Okay, great. So that was going to be my next thing, is like we're not eliminating a travel lane, but we seem pretty committed to removing parking, which I think is a decent trade-off. But if for some reason we hit a snag with some of that parking removal, that can put this concept at peril in some way, or you'd have to find a way to kind of, get people on a parallel route or kind of accommodate them. So that's my concern is you hit one snag with removing parking and you're going to be putting bicyclists in El Camino Real with traffic. So that's just my feedback.
And I think Leslie,
Mhm.
again, it's been a while, but we actually I think the city actually identified
Yeah,
a few places where that is the case, where there were only a couple sections kind of closer to
there were.
the downtown where it was identified as an issue to remove parking because a couple of businesses didn't have enough on-site parking, and there is
Right.
a plan to address that.
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, the council actually did go forward and adopted a resolution removing parking from El Camino. So as Public Works goes through and implements the interim bike lane design, that parking will be removed, with the exception of the couple of properties that we'll have to do a workaround. But they're very short. They're very short distances. Like
Yeah, most
50
of the time.
feet.
Yeah. What are the concepts? Do you have any idea for the concepts for those workarounds? Is
I'm
it
actually not sure. It's something that Public Works is going to come up with some alternatives.
Thank you.
Yeah. Manuel?
Yeah, hi. I was looking through some of the slides. The corridor residential low designation, you said that was added recently?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming some of the parcels were already, designated as other uses, whether it was corridor mixed use or residential, regional corridor mixed use. Do we kind of know how many of these sites were reclassified under the new designation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to put up that map again really quick, Alessandra?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Let me find the
Really
exact
helpful.
slide and then I'll put it back up. Where did it
Now, there's
go?
about 60 parcels, Manuel,
Mhm.
which were reclassified. But
Yeah. So do you know what percentage of that would be from the original parcels that were available on the ECR?
Oh, the percentage.
I'm not sure. Like, I mean, we could probably calculate it. I can't, I don't
Yeah.
remember off the top
Right.
of my head how many parcels there are. I mean, parcels probably, we could look at it more in terms of like acreage percentage, because parcels, of course, are, all different
Right, different in
sizes.
sizes, of course.
But you can see here kind of the scale of generally how many, or the area of parcels that were redesignated. And most of those did change from the corridor residential, so the previous lowest designation, to just a slightly lower designation than
Right.
that.
No, I see that. I guess I was just a little bit concerned. I'm seeing a lot of yellow. So it's seeming like a lot of these parcels were, changed to classification that does allow for lower, or only allows for lower densities.
the previous slide shows the distribution of the land uses. So there is yellow, but as you can see, there's a lot of pink, orange, and red.
I see. Okay, well, that did answer my question though. Thank you.
Any other CAC member with comments or questions?
Katie?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Wanted to echo my my colleagues' comments. I oversee our El Camino Real work on SVBC across the entirety of both counties, and this is just everything that we want to see. Like, I love the details of the sustainable design, great inclusionary housing, we always say we want El Camino Real to be a place where people can live, walk, and shop. And that is everything we're seeing here. I was wondering if you're coordinating at all with any neighboring cities for their feedback of consistency along the corridor.
For the implementation?
Yeah, interesting.
Just honestly, a part of this is like, I hope neighboring cities are learning from you. But yeah, I'm wondering about, like, just because we do see sometimes changing lane width between different cities.
Yeah, I mean, every city has there was overall like a larger Grand Boulevard initiative that was started many years ago to kind of coordinate all the efforts along El Camino Real. I'm not entirely sure where it stands today, although most cities have at this point adopted specific plans for their sections of El Camino Real. So like Mountain View has, their El Camino Real plan. I think, Menlo Park, Sunnyvale, etc. have all done relatively recent specific plans. And yes, I mean, you know, we did, I think about that and definitely looked at other examples when we originally drafted the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that. That was going to be my next question. So right now, the Grand Boulevard Initiative was actually just relaunched by Samtrans, but it's only including, they don't want to bite off more than they can chew, so they're only going to work on San Mateo County. But I know VTA has been leaning towards similar efforts. Are you coordinating with them at all?
And let me just add really quick to that question. I know the Central Bikeway study and project is, I don't want to speak out of turn, but there's positive momentum there. And I don't see any mention of it in this plan at all. Is that intentional or?
So this plan was written before the Central Bikeway plan. So yeah, our public works staff is taking a look at that chapter, it's chapter 5, I think, for consistency with it. So we might be making some small modifications to it, but yeah, this really was written before that was an initiative.
Other questions I had, I was wondering what is the makeup of the community in general in this area?
In terms of the surrounding parcels or the plan area itself?
The population of the people who live in the area.
In the plan area. That's a good question. I'd have to go back to our very old existing conditions report. But to be honest, you know, quite a lot has changed since we reviewed those kind of demographic, you know, that demographic information. It's something we could find and go back to. But again, I am assuming it's, you know, there have been some changes. And of course, like every year there have been more housing projects built along El Camino Real, so it's constantly changing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know that's what we want the road to look much different very soon. And last question, I was kind of just curious. I saw do you have a measure of? I saw a mention about utilities undergrounding, and this is something that came up in another section between Palo Alto, Los Altos, and Mountain View. Is there going to have to be a lot of utilities that are transitioned to underground?
Leslie, do you happen to know?
I don't know. I don't know that we have them. I don't think we took a look at how many would have to. I mean, as projects redevelop, we underground the utilities. So I don't have a metric as to how many that would be.
No worries. I know when we got that question like last month about part of the Mountain View portion because it is so expensive to underground utilities that are above ground. There was questions around how if like Mountain View would pursue that on their section of El Camino around try to finance, but it's just if it's just new utilities, that's a lot easier than older ones.
Yeah. And we do our existing conditions report, you know, has all the demographics. It is posted on our website. It was back a number of years ago, isn't it? I don't see a date on it.
2018, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
Yeah, 2018. But the information is there if you want to take a look.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And like I said, these are really, this is everything we want to be seeing in a design.
And there is a map in chapter 5 which shows where the utility conflicts are, especially with regard to street trees.
Yes, exactly.
So that may be helpful as well. Leslie?
Yeah.
Matt Reed is he's as an attendee. He didn't get a panel.
Oh, let me promote. He should be joining.
Thank you. I apologize. I had
Hi, Matthew.
I was stuck.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Do you have any comments or questions for us on the update?
You know, I apologize. I missed a lot of the discussions. So I just caught the last couple. Katie, it's good to see you. Especially as your fourth generation bike coalition on this advisory committee. So I had a question about the difference between, and if this has been covered, I can follow up afterwards. I apologize. The difference between the design guidelines and the sort of land use definitions for the I'm forgetting the neighborhood low. Let me see if I can pull up my notes. This whole thing, right, revolved around this dilemma that the council had about what the height should be proximate to single family homes.
Correct.
So what I was interested in was I read very carefully what was added, and I was interested in how it compared to the standards for single family neighborhoods or neighborhoods that allowed duplexes, where they were stronger, if anywhere, or less. Because there's nowhere else in the city and nowhere else that I know in the county that has put in a 30-degree shadow plane. That's pretty extraordinary. So we SV at Home really would like to figure out how this fits and how these standards fit to other standards in the city.
It is a stricter standard than anything that we have in our zoning code.
Yep.
That is true.
And
if there's a way, Leslie, of just pulling, I started to look, and honestly, it's probably easier for you if you could just send me a link so that I
can absolutely. Yep, I can send that to you.
I think the other significant concern that we had was, so there were three. The second one was when we lower the densities and keep the commercial FARs, and those parcels are shallow and small. I'm not sure how that works. The original plan that we spent years putting together had a vision which was challenging in and of itself, of ground floor retail with 2 to 3 stories residential above, which we know is very hard to keep the commercial FAR requirement and significantly lower the residential densities poses a whole different challenge. So I'll just throw that out there. I know you had a map that had colors on it that showed this is where we're going to have commercial, and nobody told you to change that. They just told you to lower the heights. So I'm just raising the fact that I'm not sure that's going to work.
Yeah, I can address that. So we basically created a new corridor residential low designation from the previous lowest designation, which was corridor residential. So now it kind of broke off into 2 residential-ish only designations, just at different densities, one for townhomes and one for 3 to 4 story low scale multifamily. But we actually did not make any reductions to the regional commercial mixed use or the corridor mixed use designations, which are those higher density designations where commercial is required. So
some of those still have like a 0.1 FAR, don't they? Thank you, Leslie, for affirming.
The regional commercial mixed use has a 0.2 FAR required, but those are on those very large parcels, and they're they can go, they have a high density and height limit. And then same with the corridor mixed use, that's kind of in the middle. They can go 4 to 5 stories. The densities are, you know, kind of moderate densities, but most of those actually don't have to do commercial. There are a few areas along the corridor where there is for those corridor mixed use parcels, they are required to do 50% ground floor frontage. And that's actually, it just says active use. So there are other types of uses that they could do rather than just straight retail. And it's not like an FAR, it just says 50% of the frontage has to be some kind of active use.
Got it. I think I was looking at the community mixed use, which was 20 to 30 dwelling units an acre with a 0.1 FAR.
I think you might be, are you looking at an older plan, maybe?
This was the red line version. That's the only one I had up. I can dig into this. There's another comment period. I just wanted to, I had some concerns as we were raising and lowering heights about whether there were kind of residues of a planning process that's been upended that might make pieces of the process make less sense. So the last question was, because this had come down to, you know, after a number of years, and I'm not hurt still, but I was at the time, after a number of years of significant community investment, came back to the council and was sort of summarily dismissed. And then, anyways, there's a great story. Someday somebody will do a case study on how it stayed alive. Thank you, Leslie, for your perseverance. I am wondering if this current incarnation has been shared at all with current members of the council, because if they're not satisfied that this addresses the concerns, we're going to have the same thing happen. And SV at home might be willing to say, you know what? Making sure this is going to happen in some form is the top priority, or it might be, you know, this is, we need to figure out how to fix this piece. Or so I don't know if there have been any discussions with current council members. There's one in particular who really had voiced the strongest concerns when this came in 2022. Has there been consultation, and are people feeling like their concerns are being addressed?
So we took this to council. We took the land use map and the parcels that we were going to reduce density on. We took it to council back in August of 2023, and they told us to proceed with that land use plan. And so since then, we've been revising the plan and starting the environmental work to make that change happen. And so the plan has now been redlined and revised, and we're ready to bring it back.
Okay. We've done that before.
I know.
We had a number of study sessions the last round. So okay,
we'll do another one. Yeah. So we'll do another one.
We will try to do our work. Formally, we have real concerns about the precedent. I live in a single family home. My backyard is full of shadows because my neighbor has a big tree. And the idea that somehow multifamily housing is more of an imposition.
Yeah.
And this has come up since in multiple other development discussions. And so y'all are locking in a really horrible precedent here. And we'll just keep drawing attention to that. I know that was the direction you were given, but it is a significant concern. One last thing, the language is specific to single family and duplex neighborhoods. And I'm wondering if we've thought, does single family include townhouses? And it doesn't include multifamily residential.
Doesn't include multifamily for sure, but I don't think we distinguished out townhomes. But that's a good point that we probably should be specific about that.
Well, let me make my point really clear.
Yeah.
There's no reason that somebody that lives in a townhome or an apartment is less deserving of sunlight than somebody's tomato garden.
Okay. So any residential. If we're gonna do some,
I'm
it
not,
should
I'm
be
not
any.
telling you to change it. I'm just saying that
I just want to make sure I got your point clear.
my comment is that somehow we've decided as a city that some folks' quality of life is more important than other folks' quality of life. And that has a lot to do with the pretzels that y'all are twisting yourself into to address these heights concerns.
Okay.
And, you know, if we're going to reflect on quality of life, we should acknowledge there's a lot of people in our city who don't own a single family home and are nonetheless deserving of the respect and attention of the city when it plans. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Thanks, Matthew.
Just a thought on that, Matthew. You know, single family homes generally are one story, especially those that are adjacent, while the other type of like townhomes and other type of multifamily are 3 and 4. And so that was the thought, that if you're already a 3 and 4 story building, having a building of the same height next to you should not be considered as
like a transition.
Yeah.
as much
They're
of
the
an
same
impact.
You
But I
guys
think
should,
the
you
point
guys should
about-
come and we'll do a field trip of all of the north-south streets where we're building 3,500 square foot homes where there used to be 1,000 square foot homes.
Mm,
I mean, I can just walk you around my neighborhood. So those are 2 stories that are building right to the 5-foot lot line, the 40-foot frontage, and the 20-foot rearage. And it's a change, right? But we're you know, that's what people do. So I'm not insensitive to the desire to have setbacks and sight lines and, you know, kind of responsible ways of building in proximity to other people's homes. But I just think implicit in this document and many others is the assumption that some people deserve sunlight and other people are less important. And I'm not, that's just a general planning comment. It's not unique to Santa Clara, but this just happens to be egregiously highlighting that difference in a way that I think is important to draw attention to. So Leslie, we will do what we can to get the votes on this thing, but I'm not going to stop saying that, you know, it is of concern.
I appreciate the support. Thanks, Matthew.
Oh, look, we were here. Hey, Manuel.
Hey, Matthew.
Any other CAC members before I go to the community?
Yeah, this is Shanti.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I also missed the first half hour of the meeting. So I don't know if this point was already brought up, but I was curious if you could explain. I'm looking at page 18 of the desired outcomes in section 2.2, the desired outcomes, and I'm looking at number 9. The community said we wanted to have a diverse mix of uses within the plan area, including retail, housing, civic spaces, and community facilities. Protect existing small and culturally diverse retail establishments while introducing more varied essential goods and services such as grocery stores, pharmacies, banks, laundromats, entertainment venues. And the big surprise for me in this plan was the elimination of that community commercial category, which to me is where you would put larger things such as banks and pharmacies. So I was curious if you could speak to that and why that category was eliminated, and where that percentage went, where those acres went.
We eliminated it.
So
Commercial.
no, yeah. The the corridor already was designated entirely as mixed use, two mixed use designations, all of which allow for commercial. So we didn't eliminate any commercial land use designations specifically.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Yeah, but I would say more than likely, I wasn't here when it happened, but when the general plan was adopted in 2010, the updated general plan, that's when the El Camino Real was designated as a focus area. And I believe that's when it was changed to a mixed use designation. I have not seen the previous land use diagram, so I don't know if before the adoption of the 2010 general plan that it was designated as just solely commercial. I suspect that it was.
Okay.
But since 2010, the corridor has been designated as mixed use. So it allows for standalone commercial as well.
Okay.
So we're definitely not precluding it.
No, you can still, yes.
Yes,
None of
absolutely.
the uses along the corridor are becoming non-conforming. You can still do completely standalone commercial.
Yeah, and there would still be spaces for some of these larger commercial establishments.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other CAC members?
My last question.
Yeah.
I noticed I think we have, I don't know what you call them. I kind of call them like bull bats, where we extend the sidewalk at the corners to reduce the crossing lengths. But I didn't see any pedestrian islands in the middle of sometimes 8-lane roadway. Is that is that in line with the Santa Clara's like transportation plan, or is that a decision that can be changed at this plan, this level?
I mean, there's some intersection improvement recommendations in chapter 5 that are more specific to specific intersections along El Camino Real. And there's also some conversation about other just general intersection improvements, such as, median refuge islands or hawk signals and others, recommendations to kind of make pedestrians feel safer along the corridor as they're crossing. And I believe also, again, Leslie, you might have to remind me, the city then also did a subsequent like pedestrian master plan with a lot of specific recommendations for the corridor, such as like information on like bulb outs and specific intersection improvements.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and the plan does identify some of those intersections where there needs to be priority pedestrian crossing improvements.
Yeah, I saw that. So, but
but not identifying anything specific. It'll be up to our public works
got it.
folks to,
Thank you.
yeah. Any other members? All right. All right, so seeing no one right now, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to our community members for their comments. So we're going to start with Armando. You should be able to unmute and speak. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to the advisory committee and fellow attendees for this opportunity to address you this evening. Again, my name is Armando Murillo, and I'm a field representative for the Northern California Carpenters Union at Local 405, which covers the city of Santa Clara. And as a carpenter deeply invested in our community's well-being, I urge you to implement the following factors into the El Camino Real specific plan, which are area standard wages for workers, state certified apprenticeship programs, accessible healthcare, and a local hiring practice. A livable wage is fundamental for construction workers to support their families and thrive in this community that we build. By establishing fair wage standards, you can alleviate financial strain and reinforce economic stability within our community. State certified apprenticeship programs are also crucial for encouraging the next generation of skilled workers. Investing in apprenticeships will also provide essential state certified training and career paths that will ensure a skilled and safe workforce for the future. Excuse me. And access to healthcare is not a luxury, but a basic human right. Workers deserve quality healthcare to safeguard their well-being and productivity. Construction workers work in one of the most dangerous industries in the world and deserve to have their healthcare safeguarded. Lastly, by prioritizing a local hiring practice, we will strengthen our community by reinvesting in local talent and businesses. Favoring local hires will foster economic growth and create a more inclusive workforce reflective of our city's diversity. So again, I urge you to consider these labor standards into the El Camino Real specific plan, along with the men and women who will build this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Armando. All right, Jeff, you should be able to unmute and speak. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Leslie, for
Hi.
and staff for all the hard work you guys have done on this. It's been many years. I think the first time I got involved was back in 2018, and we're really looking forward to this getting approved. Leslie, I know we exchanged emails regarding the chapter about ground floor commercial, and I scanned the new document, and I don't find grease traps in the new document. So I'm pretty certain that that's missing from the new version.
It should be in there.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, I think
We'll double check, but
Yeah, for grease.
it should be.
it
Yeah,
is.
I'm glad to hear that. If it's not there now, it'll be there later, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And then the main reason we're here tonight, and this didn't get finished a couple years ago when it went before the council, is because some of the council members didn't like the shadows and the high density. And so that's why we have this new plan with those changes in mind. Have you met with those 3 council members that voted against this plan to see if the new plan addresses their concerns?
We haven't met with them specifically, but we did take the entire land use diagram with the changed parcels that would be going to the lower density designation to them for their input and direction, and they directed us to move forward with the land use diagram as you see in the red line version of the plan today.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Did it have the design standard diagrams as well?
It at the time, no, it was just the
Okay.
it was it was just an identification of the parcels and the density that we would reduce to, and the number of units that we would be reducing down to. So no design standard details yet. That'll be coming to them next. All right, thank you, Jeff. I have no one else from the community who wishes to speak. Anyone else? Anyone else from our CAC members? All right. Well, thank you all for getting together again tonight after such a long break in our in our planning process. But we hope to bring this to a close soon. So in probably towards the end of January next in 2025, we'll be bringing this red line version to the community, and so doing a community open house to get further feedback, and then bringing it to City Council and Planning Commission and City Council. So hopefully we'll be getting this across the finish line.
Can I make a request? Just
yeah.
could you make sure that actually replace me with Manuel
Yes.
Salazar? I will be leaving SV at home at the end of the month. And
Oh,
continue to participate as a proud citizen of the city, but
okay.
it
Thank
would
you.
be great if he was on the advisory committee list.
Okay. Perfect.
Great, thank you.
All right. Will do.
Really quick on the topic of the makeup, I know there was a Santa Clara University student that just died on El Camino recently, and we've been in communication with some faculty there that want to get involved in street safety with respect to El Camino Real. Would it be possible to add another member from Santa Clara University to this committee, or is there a different process?
Yeah, at this point, no, but I know our public works department is doing a Vision Zero, and that would probably be a better place for them to participate.
Okay.
If I mean, I can get that information and email it to you if that's something that
I'm
you're
also on
interested
that
in.
working group, so
Oh,
I'll just
okay.
reach out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all again. We'll post the presentation slides up on our website for everyone to refer to, and we'll have our community open house in January. Thank you all.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.